Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Hello everyone. Road to Cheltenham is back, and we figured, where else should we start our journey than here at Cheltenham, the place that many people regard as the home of jump racing. What is indisputable though, and in the words of the late great Alistair Dan, although perhaps when the cloud isn't hanging quite so low in the sky, there can be no more beautiful natural amphitheatre than here to have as the backdrop for the pinnacle of our sport. As you roaders well know, this series is not just about Cheltenham. Week in, week out, we examine the best of our equine athletes, trying to identify their strengths and weaknesses and to work out where they might be best placed to achieve their best ambitions in racing. To join me in that endeavour will be Ruby Walsh, and he's already in the weighing room over there, so I'd better go and join him, and we're better roll titles. The magic of television doesn't extend to me running in.
I was going to praise your athletic ability to get here so fast, not out of breath and everything, and you just gave it all away.
I'm just relieved you're here. Good to see you. How are you?
Great. And yourself?
Yeah, very, very good. We're looking forward to a packed first show and also a great series over the next 4 months. First of all, though, Ruby, we should talk about people who have been busy over the summer period. To start with, Jockey Club Racecourses and Cheltenham Racecourse have been busy, and there's a new look festival in many ways. Ticketing has been held at the same prices. There's a better experience on course for racegoers. That's what Jockey Club Racecourses are promising. But also there's been some changes to the actual races of the festival.
Yeah, and to the programme. And you had to admire anybody who makes change. And when you make change, you're not going to get everything right. You can't be expected to get it all right in one fell swoop. But I don't disagree with any of the changes they've made. I think there was a pretty common thread when people were leaving here last March that there was a need for change. And to be fair to Cheltenham and Jockey Club Racecourses, they've gone about making change.
Now, I'm sure you're pretty aware of what those changes are, but briefly, here they are, just so that you know. There are 6 major changes. It means that the Grade 1 Turners is now a limited novice handicap. The National Hunt Chase is now a novice handicap capped at 145 and no longer confined to amateurs. The Glenfarclas Cross Country Chase is a limited handicap. There are no penalties in the Mares Novices hurdle. Winners of the attempts are guaranteed, of the qualifiers, are guaranteed to run in the final, provided they're in the weights at the declaration stage. And crucially, and this is the one that Ruby is about to focus on, horses must have run at least 4 times over fences or 5 times over hurdles to be eligible to run in non-novice handicaps. That's once more than previously. All of these ideas, Ruby, are meant to draw horses together, thus making the races more competitive.
Yeah, I think when you looked at the field sizes, probably the novice hurdles were the races that were under most pressure, and obviously the novice chases. They've done away with the Turners, and it's 2 graded novice chases now with the National Hunt Chase gone as well. And if you look at that and you go back through, say, Kim Muir's, like Angel's Dome was a novice, Mount Ida, Milan Native, I know the way you're thinking, still only Mount Ida wouldn't qualify. Milan Native had 5 runs, Angels Dawn had 5, and another way you're thinking it had 4. So they were just about, I know the way you'd think him would get in, but Mount Ida wouldn't have got into the Kim Muir. You look at the plate, simply the Betts and the Shunter were the 2 novices, but both had 4 starts over fences, so that's not really going to help either. Whereas maybe in the Ultima, there's been a couple of winners, most noticeably Chianti Classico last year. Corey Gramler was a novice when he won, but he'd had 5 starts. But when you look at last year's Ultima, you had Chianti Classico who won the race, Twig was second. They both wouldn't qualify for it. Neither would we've all been caught. Now Trelawn had 4 starts, and so did Meeting of the Waters had 5. So there's still some novices going to get in there. But the idea is to try and put novices in the novice races and handicappers in the handicap races. I can see that, and it'll have a bigger effect over hurdles, especially with the Martin Pipe. You look at last year's Martin Pipe, Better Days Ahead beat Waterford Whispers, Key to Bourbon. None of them would be in it this year. They only all had 4 runs. Answer the Cave was a novice who finished 4th but had 5 starts. He would qualify. And then if you look back through different winners, Gallopin Deschamps only had 4 runs over hurdles. He wouldn't be in. Banbridge was a novice, but he'd had 5 starts because he started in May. Iroko was a novice, but had 6 starts because he started the year previously, and Better Days Ahead. The Coral Cup winners would all be the same. None of those were novices, whereas in the county you have St. Roy, Stateman and Absurd. So Willie Mullins, down runners in the Supreme, but they all probably without the option of a county, could have been supreme horses.
But when you change the rules, people's campaigning isn't set in stone. They'll change as well. What do you think will be the wider knock-on effects?
You invent any system and people are going to play it, whatever walk of life you're in. So obviously these horses will have to have more runs. That can't be a bad thing. If you're going to have 5 runs to run in an open handicap, you have to run more. That has to be good for the racing public to see horses more often. I think the weather this year, we're already into November. A lot of those horses will have already had 1, if not 2 runs by now. So maybe this year Cheltenham will get the desired result. But looking at it in a cold light today, I wonder, should it have excluded horses who hadn't run over fences or over hurdles on the first day of the new season, rather than putting a number on the runs to get the desired answer. Only time will tell. It's
an interesting idea. The other thing that Cheltenham pointed out was that these might evolve. So, input like that, ideas like that, things that aren't working.
Change is good, but no one can get everything right in one fell swoop when you make change. And I would also think that, and we might do at some stage during the programme, but there needs to be an open conversation about what's a novice.
Which we will touch upon during the course of this show, because we already had a chat about it, Ruby and I, before we came on air. Now, you remember in the last series, we introduced you to Race IQ and a number of new metrics to help your analysis and understanding of racing. That included lengths gained, jumping. Now, the boffins at Race IQ haven't been sitting around twiddling their thumbs over the summer either, and they've been developing the jumping index, which we will be bringing to you and explaining during the course of the season. You might have noticed these as well. Do you remember last year when we were...
How come we'd no input in the picture?
Do you not like how you look?
I wouldn't be so sure.
OK. I like the fact it's Sprinter Sacco in the background.
On my bad side.
Which one's your good side?
It's an easy statement, isn't it?
Now, you can win one of these mugs. How would you did you describe it, Ruby? It's for contributors, roadies who contribute to the show and make a what? What did you call it?
Worthy.
A valid contribution.
Valid contribution.
A valid contribution.
Lydia put a better word on it. I just had worthy. So it's a valid. If you make a valid contribution to the show, you should win a mug. But so please don't be a mug.
It's according to Ruby, of course. Yeah. So it's a high bar, and I think we all know he's a bit of a grump.
We haven't got that many mugs, so.
Good point. And we need at least 2. Until I smash one, then we'll need another one. Right, OK, let's get on with the actual action, shall we? We're starting, as ever in this series, with the staying chasers. I make no apology for that. It is the division of racing that I find most compelling, and it's the one I think that everybody who gets involved in the sport is most engaged with. You want to breed, you want to own, you want to train, you want to watch, you want to bet on a Gold Cup winner.
It's the ultimate dream, and there was fall sales on all week in Ireland in Tattersalls, and it's the ultimate dream. That's what people are buying. Strange results. A lot of the prop price ones were going to France, but it is the ultimate dream, and that is the pinnacle. What do people set out to breed? I believe it's a Gold Cup horse.
So let's start with the Gold Cup from last year. We had the same result in a different way with Galopin Deschamps winning it. Here's your analysis,
and reading
Ruby.
a different way. It bounced out much handier this year, which we didn't think seemed as a surprise at all. Good gallop on, a real whacker down the inside. We got to the first ditch at the top of the hill. Monkfish banked this. He was always going a mile an hour faster than he was able, and Corrick Rambler at the back. He was pretty much to the edge of his tether as well. Now, they didn't go mad quick because Gentleman's Game, the grey, Jungle Boogie with the yellow sleeves, and Faster Slow in the red cap, they were all well on the bridle after going to circuit in this Gold Cup. It wasn't relentless, but look, Harry Cobden realised that early because he moved up and joined Paul Townend as they went away from the stands, and the race then eventually started to take shape. You lost Faster Slow as he climbed the hill. Very unlucky for JJ Slevin. His shoulders were simply too far in front of his hips, and when he nodded, gravity takes over. Faster Slow then, when he was loose, definitely got in the way. Paul Townend shoved Jack Kennedy in behind him on the run to the second last fence as Corrick Rambler on the left in purple was starting to come motoring home. But this was a real staying performance. They did up the ante with a circuit to go, and it turned into a slog. Galopin Deschamps, stamina won him out. Now, Jerry Colombe, after meeting a little bit of interference there, going to the second last, does eventually pick up and keeps chasing Galopin Deschamps all the way to the line, and it was tiring. You can look at Long Press there folding, and watch Corrick Rambler here, how much he, for a horse who can win over 4 miles plus, look how empty he gets. It was a stamina-laden contest, but Galopin Deschamps won his second Gold Cup, and hopefully he'll be back here in March to try and win a third.
Now, he has had a little bit of a setback, and I'd missed this. I only read it when I went through Willie Mullins' stable tour in sportinglife.com. Let's see what he had to say. He missed a couple of weeks last month with a small issue, but it's resolved now, so we'll see if he's ready enough for the John Durkin. Maybe we'll wait until Christmas. When I go to gallop him, we'll see how he is. When will that critical gallop be?
I would have thought it would be next week. The John Durkin is, of course, You know, it's a Saturday or Sunday week, but it's one or the other. Morgian is one day and John Durkin is the other. So I'd imagine he'll gallop next week, but he is in full work. It was a pretty minor hold-up.
Okay, but it's unusual. I mean, you know, generally the Clermont order has a vow of silence. Do not speak unless you absolutely have to, and even then, maybe don't.
Do not speak unless you're winning Mullins.
But yet he actually said it. So I'm reading into that he might be further behind for his first run than I would otherwise expect him to be.
He was putting out fires for fear he doesn't run the John Durkin, because that's where everybody would expect him to be. So forewarned is foretold.
OK, we'll come back to Jerry Colombe and the others that chased him home in the Gold Cup in a moment. But let's talk about what Galopin Des Champs went on to do. He went back to Punchestown and once again he was beaten by Fast or Slow. How did you read this?
Comprehensively beaten. Look, he jumped out to make the running down the inside, conflated and the maroon was outside him. But they hadn't gone 4 fences and JJ Slevin couldn't keep Fast or Slow behind Galopin Des Champs. He jumped by him at the 4th fence and then JJ was in a beautiful position and in control of the race because conflated always goes left. Top of the hill here, he really jumps into the cross-country field and JJ Slevin is completely in control of the race. And Paul tried to put it up to him at different times, but look at Fast or Slow. 2 ears pricked. You've got Gentleman's Game, Hewick, in fairness to him, appreciated coming on. Capadano's fallen back, Corrick Rambler's gone, and Fast or Slow to me was the best horse on the day. Conflated missed the second last, but he was really impressive. Now you could argue he unseated early enough in the Gold Cup that he was a fresher horse. I get the feeling, talking to Martin Brasley and looking at JJ Slevin, that they would go to that. He's gone back and won a Punchestown, but I'd say JJ couldn't believe how well he was travelling in the Gold Cup, and they'll want their shot at Galopin Des Champs here.
And they should have it as well. We know when he was narrowly beaten by Corrick Rambler, conceding weight in the Ultimate, that this place, its undulations, hold no fears. I don't think there's anything. I think it was just one of those things, genuinely in the Gold Cup.
Absolutely one of those things. And just when you nod, and look, gravity does win.
Yeah.
And when you nod like that, and it's happened to me, it's happened to everybody who's ever ridden a horse. And unfortunately, it happened at the biggest stage of JJ.
Right, I read that Punchestown Gold Cup slightly differently. I was frustrated. I was frustrated from fence 2 that more use wasn't being made of Galopin Des Champs. Yes, allowing Conflated to go off and jump left clear, but a more positive ride because their connections had said during the course of the season, they'd learned from the John Durkin that he gets into his flow earlier and better if you're more positive with him in earlier stage. There he was being steadied early on, and as you said, that critical move came really early for me when JJ Slevin moved into the catbird seat.
Yeah, but I would say Paul Townend is a field rider, and when Galopin didn't take him there, I never really see Paul force horses to do things that they don't want to do themselves. So Paul rides on fear, and I'd say he gets it right more often than he gets it wrong. But that's just a different way of riding. I see what you're saying, but Paul doesn't ride that way. We never see Paul buck out and force and go, which is what you would have liked him to have done.
More
to a sense, yeah.
Closer to Conflated, more positive. You know? Yeah. The other thing that was pointed at Galopin Des Champs is, does he need really testing ground? Because that was good to soft that he was beaten on. Yeah,
maybe. But also, when you go back to Christmas and after being beaten in the John Durkin, his Christmas performance was massive. And how many massive performances does any horse have in him in a season?
Oh, it was a huge performance.
Yeah.
It was right up with his best.
You just wonder, was the performance at Christmas, did that tell as much at the end of the season?
I think he's an incredibly tough horse. I don't buy the ground argument. What was
his
other best performance on good to soft ground? The first Gold Cup win.
Yeah, I don't either. I just think that it was maybe that crueler at Christmas.
Okay. Let's move on to the entry bowl, shall we? And have a look at Jerry Colombe, who beat Ahoy Seigneur.
Yeah, who seems to absolutely love entry. Brave Man's Game booked out on this occasion after sitting in a little bit in the Gold Cup, and Shishkin was on a real going day as well. Not a whole pile happening in the race. Corbett's Cross at the back. Jerry Colombe jumps well. Watch Corbett's Cross here when he lands. Mark Walsh has to squeeze him, and he was again at the back of your shot early in the back straight. You kind of wonder, up in grade, does Corbett's Cross need that hood? I would question it. It'd be interesting to see if he wears it in the Betfair Chase next week when he goes there after having a run at Wexford. But this was a really good gallop. But Ahoy Seigneur is an admirable horse. He definitely is a better horse at Aintree than he is anywhere else. He really got in the mix. And when they went to the second last, this looked like his race for the taking. Then Corbett's Cross arrived on the outside. He pushed Jerry Colombe forward. And this race changed so quickly. Now, Brave Man's Game, he kind of folded a bit like he did in Weatherby this season there. And I don't think he has quite gotten over what Galopin Des Champs did to him in the Gold Cup.
Agree.
I'm not certain the King George form is rock solid, because there's Shishkin beside Brave Man's Game again as they drop away from Corbett's Cross, Jerry Colombe and Ahoy Seigneur. But Jerry Colombe, he was second in the Gold Cup. Good to see him coming back and win here. I wouldn't be surprised if the third horse is the one that improves enough though to go at these.
So last season, this time last year, we identified that Jeriko du Repenet's Achilles heel was that he doesn't get away from his fences with enough alacrity, and it was the same there with that great big klutz a hoist, and you're getting away from the last quicker than him as well. I know he loves Aintree.
And the same argument can be made for Corpus Cross. You definitely jump better, and the figures show you that in the National Hunt Chase against novices than he did against open horses. But I think with experience, and I would take the hood off him, maybe then he'll get away.
Yeah, his jumping needs to be on point sooner as he goes into the big league. So Jeriko du Reponet, I know you mentioned he got in a pocket in the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Can you see him turning it around with Galopin Des Champs?
You kind of looked at the North and thought it wasn't as good a comeback as it was last year.
Agreed.
Could I see him turning it around? I'm not sure, but I did see a whole host of novices last year that you thought, there could be one amongst those.
I agree. I'm just going to mention Lompresse, only because he was coming back from a really long absence. I do like him, but he was coming back from a really long absence, and I don't think he had a full run at last season. And I think the Gold Cup trip stretches him. I think he could be a player for something during the course of the season, potentially. I mean, he was second. He was going to be second, wasn't he? In that race, and he ran really well a couple of years back. So yeah, potentially something like that, maybe. Right, you mentioned the novices. We've already talked about one, Corbett's Cross, that ran in the big league at the end of last season. He runs in the colours of JP McManus, who's got just horses left, right and centre in this division, all coming through. Perhaps the best of them, Factifile, who won the Brown Advisory?
He won the Brown Advisory. And the one thing about Factifile was he was gassy. Here they are going to the third fence, and they were going to go gallop, but he was on Mark Walsh's hands and he was reaching. Now, Mark did a good job on him. He got him to settle by the time he got up to about the fifth or sixth fence, and he dropped the stay away. Faye was going to good gallop in front. Monty Star, Sendor Clegan, American Mike and Giovinco at the back, but you see him here again in the second circuit. He does get onto Mark's hands. Now, as a novice, Galopin Des Champs was forward going quite keen as well, and he's turned into a more relaxed, staying tight, but he did impress me. Monty Star went back to Punchestown and ran really well behind Spillane Tower, but I'd like the way he went to the last. He pings the last and he galloped all the way to the line. He has a bit of age on his side. He was foot perfect over fences last year, bar being turned over by American Mike on his debut. There was no shame in that. He still jumped brilliantly, and I loved the way he galloped to the line. So he's won for JP, but the list keeps going.
He is. Stamina is the question, isn't it, for a Gold Cup specifically?
He'll have to settle. That's just, you looked at him early, and these horses will make their way through the season and they will tell you where they're going to go. But when you watched him as a novice, could he be a Ryanair horse? Definitely has the pace. If he settles, he's a Gold Cup horse.
And JP McManus does have a pack. You wonder whether there'll be some last-minute shuffling.
I'd say he has spent many a night during the summer thinking about that.
But I think that horse is smart. I mean, the time performance when he was beating Gaelic Warrior at the Dublin Racing Festival, and even though it was a match, was fantastic.
Yeah, but where he had him beaten. Like Gaelic Warrior could win the Arkle, and Factifile had him up a stick after jumping 4 fences.
Okay. Keeping on the very high-class novice and JP McManus theme, let's have a look at I Know the Way You're Thinking, and this is him winning the Mildmay at Aintree.
It is, and I suppose, don't want to harp on about another thread, I Know the Way You're Thinking, Chianti Classico and Heartwood all in here, who came back to a Grade 1 novice, all having won big handicaps. What is a novice? But look, Broadway Boy went a really good gallop in the front. Now, I Know the Way You're Thinking's jumping definitely left a little bit to be desired here. He got in the pocket, had to switch across and gets out behind him at the second last fence where he wasn't foot perfect either, and eventually gets going. Chianti Classico is in front, Heartwood is second, Giovinco is going to tip up sadly at the last fence, but I Know the Way You're Thinking does get running and gallops on all the way to the line. He did, when he got going, put this race to bed really quickly, and there were fair horses in behind him. He just needs to jump a bit slicker and be. His jumping, to me, has more to improve than the other horses, but he has a huge engine, and that's a pedigree that always keeps improving. And Iroko runs into second. Could he be a player of the weekend?
Up in trip as well, ultimately, I think.
Yeah.
That was three. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking it was shorter. Yeah, he stayed on. He sort of got outpaced and then stayed on. I think certainly a lesser grade is probably what he wants.
Yeah.
But coming back to I Know the Way You're Thinking, he took ages to warm up his jumping as well in the Kim Muir, didn't he? I mean, because Derek O'Connor bounced out fairly prominently. By fence 2, he was like fourth last.
Yeah, dropped back into it. His jumping would be the one concern for
Very much so.
But there is the engine is there, the ability is there. It's just, can he jump quick enough and slick enough? that's the question mark for him.
I want to mark up Chianti Classico in that performance as well, because he and Broadway Boy got going a long, long way out, and he stuck around until the last fence. He's already come back and won at Ascot. I think he's going to be a high-class handicapper this season.
He is off a pretty high mark. He won a 100,000 man handicap. I was hoping they might keep him for the Coral Gold Cup. But
me too.
They went straight in. They went straight in at Ascot and kind of blew that one out of the water. But look, it was a really good performance, and he has. I've kind of heard thoughts that maybe they're thinking about the National for him, but he's not far off being a Grade 1 chaser.
No, he's not.
No.
He's not far off a graded chaser. You mentioned there, what is a novice? Do you want to expand on that thought?
I do. I mean, you look at, the way you're thinking. So the way our system is set up, a novice, you from the start of a season, when you win, you're a novice until the end of that season. In Ireland, there's a different rule that if you win after the 1st of February, you're a novice until December, which allows Hartwood, who's won a Leopardstown Chase and been played in the Grade 1, to run in the Drinmore. It allowed Ian Maximus, who'd won an Irish National, to run in the Drinmore. I understood why they changed that rule at the time. I'm not sure it's worked. It's made February, March and April maiden hurdles and beginners chases more competitive. But has that also taken away an opportunity from a lesser horse to win it? And you're giving other horses too long as novices. To me, what is a novice is inexperience. It goes back to Gaillard de Mesnil. Mr. Coffee, is he running in the cross-country race tomorrow? He's still a novice.
So would you rather it was done on number of starts?
I think it has to. And then even when we get to Marine Nationale later, who only had 2 starts last year, he's out of novice company because he won, but he's only had 2 runs.
And it sounded like to me that you were crafting an argument that once you win an open
Do you beforehand? I do. I think for Hartwood...
Win or take part in?
I think once you run in
an
open handicap, like... I know the way you're thinking did, like Hartwood did in the Leopardstown Chase. To me, that is your owner and trainer saying, we think this horse is experienced enough to run in this race. Therefore, to me, why are you still a novice? Novice, to me, is inexperienced. And I think that's how you keep the novices together.
Food for thought. Give us your thoughts, Roders, on that. You could win one of these. I'm just going to take a flagrant sip of tea.
So you brought your own coffee and didn't bring any for me.
Notice I brought my own.
That's what I mean.
Let's move on to Punchestown. Another JP McManus top flight novice chaser.
Yeah, Spillane Tower, and he had a really good season. He'd won the Ryanair Gold Cup at Ferryhouse, stepped up to 3 miles for the first time, 3-car Bragg, Embassy Gardens, Monty Star, Sendor Clean at the back, Sendor Clegan at the back. 2 of these are still novices, 3-car Bragg and Sendor Clegan. How much experience do you need? Not their fault, that is the system, they're only playing the system. But he quickened up really smartly. Monty Star had run really well at Cheltenham, 3-car Bragg down the inside. But Spillane Tower, to be fair to him, he answered every question he was asked last year by Jimmy Mangan, and he produced him here in Punchestown after winning at Ferryhouse, and he was as good at 3 miles as he was at 2.5. I know you really like this horse.
I really love this horse, yeah, right from his seasonal debut. I love the way he's been brought steadily through and peaked at Grade 1 level the last twice at Ferryhouse and at Punchestown. I guess I don't know in top company what he might be like left-handed. We know that he can mix it with the top novices this way around.
Yeah, I suppose it's a fair question. I suppose, can he go left-handed? I don't see any reason why he won't.
No, it's just something that I will be bearing in mind. Yeah, absolutely. We have to also go back further in the season to remember a scintillating performance, and we shouldn't forget it. It involved a certain French raider at Kempton.
How are we saying his name again?
Il est français.
Il est français. This is him down over the last 3 fences at Kempton, and he was spectacular in the Cato Stars, I want to call it the Feltham, which it was at one point. Jumped Bernardy, travelled Bernardy Cruz the longest, had a blip or 2 in France since, and seems to be back on song, and he's going to be a huge player in the King George. Could I see him outside of Kempton the way he races? To me, he'd be down in distance. I wouldn't see him as a Gold Cup horse.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but I think he's got a huge chance in the King George. I mean, this blew last year's King George, which was an inferior edition, out of the water in terms of times. It was faster at all stages apart over the first couple of fences. It
was, and I think when form goes on, to be fair to Hewick, I'm not sure Kempton ultimately suited him. He ended up winning the King George, but when you looked at what Braveman's Game, Allaho, Shishkin did after, it does put a question mark over that.
Definitely. We thought so at the time.
I know we did, but time backs it up. We're not saying we told you so.
Let's have a look at the betting for the King George, shall we? There is Il est français. He was the favourite at 5-2. He has come back and won at Auteuil in September, might have a stepping stone in mid-November to this target, potentially taking on the likes of Gaelic Warrior. What trip will he be running over this season? We'll talk about that later. Galopin de Champs, I doubt. I can't really see him turning up. Grey Dawning, he comes up in our conversations shortly as well, and then 12 to 1 and upwards the rest. Let's move on to the action that we've already seen so far this season, and we start with the Charlie Hall. You've referred to it in passing already. Brave Man's Game was beaten by the Real Whacker.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it at the end of last season, Brave Man's Game, could the handicapper have dropped him further? I think he could. Than he did. The Real Whacker jumped out here with Conflated, French Dynamite, who'd won it down Royal, or at Punchestown even, hang in there just behind him, Sam Brown. Up in the air here from Brave Man's Game, we know he can do that at times. He is a clean jumper even. But it went a really good gallop. But the Real Whacker was having a real go in there under Brian Hughes. And he got into a rhythm in the back straight that put the rest of them under pressure. He was pinging fences for him. And it was good to see him back. He hadn't got into that rhythm in the Kerry National when he unseated past the stands trying to follow Flory Porter. But he was having a real going day here at Wetherby. But do you think, or I think, he's a Gold Cup horse? I don't. Could he run the King George? Possibly. More likely where he might go, but I was probably a little bit more disappointed with Paul's horse, with Brave Man's Game, and I think that's another step back. Sam Brown is right beside him, hanging there behind him. I don't know, this is a bogey now, but ultimately, could he be a Grand National horse?
Brave Man's Game?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd be interested in anything in the short term, to be honest. I think he needs to find his level again. He was below his best all last season, having had a fabulous season the season before.
But I think each run seems to be going back.
That is the best that the Real Whacker has jumped since he was a novice. You know, remember when he used to be really smart jumper as a novice? That's how he beat Jerry Colomb in the Brown Advisory.
It was good to see it.
It was good to see it. In a first-time visor, he actually ran far better than it appeared in the Gold Cup, didn't he? He was right up there, forcing the pace, and then, didn't get home quite understandably. He's surely going to fall into the repository of Ryanair, isn't he, this season? Shouldn't he be aiming there?
Yeah, but you have to go and find that out. And I would, if he was yours, where'd you go now?
I'd probably try the King George, I think.
Of course you would. That's where he's going. This is the road, and the road at the moment is to Christmas, and I think that's where he ends up at Christmas.
Yeah, and then potentially regroup. Right, we've had action from Dan Royal as well. This was the champion chase, and Envoy Alain has extended his excellent record at the track. Yeah, he was a little bit unlucky in the race last year. Jerry Colomb bounced out to make all. Delta worked beside him. Wasn't long before Hewitt jumped by a metre at the third fence it was under Jordan Gainford, and Hewitt then dictated the race from there on. Now Jerry, to me, looked almost at times here like he was going as fast as he wanted to be going. And I don't think that was overly quick. That's the 10 fence. He made a mistake and he was under pressure on landing from it. Envoy Alain was always galloping over him. But to me, he looked rusty. He looked lethargic. And maybe that was just the ground. But he never, to me, when you're watching this race, you're never thinking, oh yeah, he's going to get going and win here. At least last year, even though he was on the wrong side of Delta Walk, he was always travelling for Jack Kennedy. This year, he was always flat to the boards, and Hewitt went out on his shield. Envoy Allen arrived down beside him going to the second last and looked all over the winner. Again, Envoy Allen, as he had done last year, gets in under the last. Only this year, he was running back at Hewitt, who was starting to tire, rather than Jerry Colomb come and chase him. Like last year, Jerry Colomb came from a couple of lengths down to chase Envoy Allen down and beat him. This year, he was never going to do that. That's Envoy Alain. Here's the mistake you're talking about.
Not a mistake, but just
in too close, just as good as ever. This is as good as ever, Rising 11.
Rising 11, yeah. And look, Henry's horses are in incredible order at the moment. But look, it's another grade one for him for the season. And look, he ran a cracker in last year's Ryanair chase. He just ultimately in the day wasn't good enough for Protector.
Yeah, a big run from Hewitt. As you say, Jerry Colomb, Gordon Elliott has come out and said he thought he was beaten after a couple of fences. They found a couple of problems.
It looked that way to me too.
He says they found a couple of problems, so they're kind of keep to the same campaign as last time, so we might see him around Christmas. I don't think he loves going right-handed. He does adjust left. He did it at Aintree. He's done it at Cheltenham. And, it's a bit of a sort of squarish course, isn't it, Dan Royal? Yeah, and on the corners, he was kind of like, he looked most ponderous, I thought. I expect him to do better than that, but it was a much lesser effort than on Cecil debut last time around. We've got important action for what is probably going to be horses that will be contesting the intermediate distance of the Ryanair ultimately, but all along the season as well. And the first significant target for them is the Paddy Power Gold Cup on Saturday. Let's take a look at the betting. Gina's Destiny, who was runner-up in the Turners, is the favourite at 5-2 for Paul Nicholls. Imagine for Harry Durham is there at 5-1, formerly with Gordon Elliott. Garlaw is 5-1 also, and Protectorat down there at 14-1 with top weight is the winner of last season's Ryanair.
Yes, and after watching him in Newbury, we kind of thought maybe that would be the place for him. But look, Cavalry charged to the first stage, Star, Ahoy Senior, Banbridge, Protectorate, Gala just in behind them, Fugitive at the back, Envoy Allen out wide. But by the time they got to the third fence and the race had taken shape, Harry Skelton was always cantering in this race. He got in the box seat behind Harry Durham. But when you look back through all the horses at various points of this race, nobody else was slowing down as much as Harry Skelton. Here he is going to the fence down the hill, and when he lands, he's already taken him back off stage start. He could have been in front at any point when he wanted to. And I know you can get in the right place, but this trip really suited Protectorate. Banbridge was flat to the boards at that ditch. Ahoy Senior still looked to be going well. Top of the hill, Harry can still take over. Banbridge in the red cap can't go any quicker. Capadano's trying to get onto their tails. Field Doors at the back, but Rachel is following Harry Skelton, but she's not going anywhere near as easy as him. She's hanging on to Envoy Allen. She gets up to Harry Skelton going to the second last fence when they take it off Harry Cobden on stage star. But this little horse has won a Betfair Chase. You know he gets a bit further, and it just was able to put himself in the right position every step of the way. He had that pace and he's jumping. He was a really good winner.
He's tried the Gold Cup before and he just doesn't get home in the same way. They're able to ride him much more positively in this contest. And also interesting, I wonder whether the number of races he had last season was important to him. He ended up having 6, I think, which was twice the number of the previous season. It looked like he thrived in it.
Yeah, but we know he's not quick enough. We know he's still slowing down there. But it just shows you how much Envoy Allen slowed to Conflated and Capadano, who both won over further. They couldn't even match him. He was really at his element at that trip.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think Conflated might have finished a bit closer had he been a little bit more forwardly positioned in the early part of the race, whereas I think Capadano couldn't go any quicker.
But I'm not so sure about Conflated either. I think he ended up where he ended up because he couldn't go the gallop stage star. Ahoy Senior and Protectorate were going.
Okay. We're seeing Conflated already this season down the field in the Charlie Hall, and he is going to be running in the cross country, we think, at the weekend here at Cheltenham. That was going to be the plan for him last season, and it ended up being changed with the problems with the cross country.
Yeah, and this year it's a handicap, but he's going there, so it'll be interesting. He's going to have a go tomorrow, anyway. So
the last race we're going to talk about in this section is also going back to the novices, and it involves a horse that's going to be running on Saturday, Ginny's Destiny, and on this occasion, in the Turners, he was beaten by Grey Dawning.
Yeah, and they've been kind of clashing off each other all season, and it wasn't surprising to see Ginny's Destiny make the run in Grey Dawning, following him, which we had seen a few times here at Cheltenham, actually. But when they got to the second last, this time last year, Grey Dawning jumped into the second last fence, whereas in the Turners, he pinged it, got to Ginny's Destiny, and was able to beat him quite well. Danny here, Facile Viga, falling out the back of your shot. But Harry, or Dan Skelton, was betwixt and between with Grey Dawning. Should he go 3 miles, should he go 2 miles? He ultimately went for this race, and he got it right. Ginny's Destiny, look, if he's going to step up and grade to be a Ryanair horse, he kind of has to be winning a Paddy Power at 155.
Yeah. My feeling as I was watching this race live, this was testing ground. Had it been a sounder surface, I wonder whether Ginny's Destiny would have been able to get away from Grey Dawning and put him more on the stretch. This season I see their paths diverging, with Ginny's Destiny staying around at intermediate trips and Grey Dawning going back up in trip. I see him as a Gold Cup candidate.
I'm not sure. I think both have to improve a little bit, and it'd be interesting to see how Ginny's Destiny gets on. For me on Saturday afternoon, that might maybe guide my judgment of Grey Dawning.
I'm a fan.
I'm not convinced.
I'm a fan of both of them. I'm a fan of the strength of that race.
I just think he let Tom kick them out of the way in entry.
I think, he did, that's true, but Eleti Tom probably isn't as suited to Cheltenham as either of they are, is he? I mean, he probably, to be fair to me, he probably couldn't jump out of the heavy ground in the Arkle.
Yeah, maybe, but he wasn't like that. Eleti Tom skipped Cheltenham to go there fresh to take them on. He didn't. He danced every dance, Eleti Tom.
So is it Galopin de Champ for you to make it 3 like best mate? It sounds like it is.
I'd hate to be getting off him anyway.
Okay. That's our thoughts about where the Championship staying division currently stands. We'll be visiting various Grade 1 stops during the course of the season, and we'll be combing over that form as it develops. It's going to be exciting stuff. Now, this is a teaser for next week. It's about novice chasing. We're going to focus on novice chasers and what we've seen so far, probably in next week's show. But we did ask you via social media, which novice chaser has impressed you most so far and why? Firefox up top at Down Royal, in the pocket, bottom left, beating Farron Glory no less at Wexford, or Lodesud, bottom right at Stratford. What did you think, Ruby?
Captain Teague.
You funny.
In the pocket, only, and we will go which when we go through them, we'll come back to it. All of his runs have been left-handed. He's a left-handed horse. I don't think he's even in the Drinmore, but yeah, I liked In the Pocket last year, and I liked what he did at Wexford.
Okay, well, we'll hear Ruby's more detailed thoughts about that performance later on in the series. Let's have a look what you thought was the most impressive. Overwhelmingly, Firefox.
And he was good at Down Royal, but yeah, time will tell. Time will tell. All opinion, Lydia.
It is, and I just wanted to mention a shout-out from Dan Barber of Timeform, who often joins us on the Road to Cheltenham journey. He was talking about Imperial Saint at a slightly lower level. Looks like the kind of horse that might be able to be progressive. A very
good spot,
good
Dan, because I
jumper.
haven't even seen him.
More on the novices, as I said, later on in the series. We're going to stick with novice chasers, though, because now it's time for Analyse This.
So, topic of conversation last week, of course, was Jeriko du Reponet and his chase debut at Sandown. So we're going to take a closer look at him and go fence to fence, pretty much. First fence, watch Nico de Bonville's hands. He's a good hold of Jeriko du Reponet. Now, this is where it goes wrong for me. Second fence, Nico spots his stride and sits into him. And by doing that, he loses the contact and asks the horse to go forward. And as soon as he does, this horse jams on, just goes up in the air. 1, 2, oh! Like he didn't want it, like he needed help, like he needed support. He rounded the corner, he can't really see what he does at fence 3, but when he gets to fence 4 again, Nico's hands, he's sitting on him, he shortens up and pops it. That's careful, but it's a 2-mile chase, you don't want to jump like that. Next fence he meets it spot on, and Nico just sits in behind him, that's grand. Doesn't have to ask him a question. And at the ditch here coming in front of you, he still holds the contact on him and he pops. You can see his hand rising there, he's holding him. Can't see the water jump, but each of the railways, he gets into the first one, holds the contact with him and he gets in and pops it, goes to the that's the first one, no problem, gets in close, bit of contact, bit of help. Second one, he's absolutely spot on, so Nico doesn't have to either ask him forward or hold him back, but at the last one he does go to send him forward, and Nico again, like he done at the second fence, the ditch, lies onto this horse, go on, no, skips and slates. Now Nico said he skidded and fell into that fence, so why did he pull him up? Well, to be honest with you, you've asked him 2 questions and he's answered neither. I'd say that's why Nico's pulled him up. That would be my honest opinion. If I'd been riding him, I'm not so sure I'd have kept going to the third fence, because I can't imagine that's the way he's schooled.
I don't think it was. It seemed to come as a surprise to all. As you'll know if you were watching live, there was quite a delay to proceedings, and that was caused by Jeriko du Reponet. Anthony Dunkley, who was our presenter on Racing TV on that day, caught up with Nicky Henderson afterwards, and this is what he had to say.
That was strange. I mean, like, very strange, in that this is the, you know, he's got a wonderful temperament. To saddle today, it was like, you thought we were trying to break in a lion. It was crazy, and I haven't, you know, that was totally out of character. We then had to resaddle him back, we had to take him back up into the saddling boxes, and he just was, but the vet looked at him and listened to him and everything, checked again at the start. You know, I said, Nick, if you're not happy when you get down there, and it totally, as soon as you got on him, no problems. I mean, just back to normal. Everything was normal. And we said, right, you know, he's good to go. And I'd walked the ground as well. We were happy with that. Everything was good apart from pre-saddling. Then I've got to say the first ditch was, Altior used to do that ditch every time. I mean, it's just one of those things. They see ditches at home. It's probably a bigger white rail than they see, and it's, oh, help. What do I do here? And then consequently you get that enormous great balloon, which is going to be quite clever to survive. And then Nico said he started to warm back up. He was warming up all the way down the back, and started to get the jumping and going. So he got to the last of the railways, and he said, honestly, you'll need to see it to believe it. He just slipped from yards out straight into the fence. And quite rightly, in my opinion, he pulled him up. There was no point in, you can't take a chance with the horse, but he wasn't going to win at that point anyway. He was unhappy. That would have just, confidence by then had had 2 serious shocks.
I think it was an unsatisfactory day from many people's perspective, you know, the communication as well about what was going on and causing the delay beforehand. Jeriko du Reponet didn't have a great experience at Cheltenham, did he? That was the time when Nicky Henderson's string was sadly under a cloud that lasted. He was one of the ones that was actually run.
He was first up.
Yeah, so you know, I don't know, you tell me, could that have had an effect on him coming back to the racecourse first time?
I think he was quite tricky to saddle. To me, that would probably be fresh. Over fresh.
Right.
First day back at school, too excited, and that would be the obvious answer to me, but again, I don't know. I'd be just thinking maybe too simple.
And how about the second fence there? Because you often see horses balloon it. Nicky Henderson mentioned Altior doing it. We'll see Al Fabiolo in a moment doing it in the celebration
Baloo
shows.
did the same with me once or twice, but they kind of did it without being asked a question. They ballooned off their hocks. To me, it was when he was asked, the two fences, Nico asked him to jump. He didn't take off.
So you're basically saying this is a nervous jumper?
Well, to me, it's back to the schooling ground.
Yeah. I think, to be fair, I think that's what Nick Henderson was saying, that he backed right off
big time. You had to go school him and see what he does at home, but to me, he was asked twice and he said, no, thank you, twice.
Okay. That's the thoughts on Jeriko du Reponet on Analyse This.
Okay, gents, next item on the agenda is we need to shoot something to use in the ad slot for the Road to Cheltenham.
The what?
Road to Cheltenham ad slot?
The Road to Cheltenham.
Yeah, Paddy Power sponsored the Road to Cheltenham on Racing TV. You should probably know that.
How much is that costing us?
Doesn't matter.
Ah, come on, you know I'm on the Road to Cheltenham.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. We already know you're on the Road to
Oh,
Cheltenham.
thanks, Tom. So now you want the viewers to endure me for the show and the ad slot?
Well, we can't afford to bring in anyone else.
Because the amount of bloody money we're paying to sponsor the thing.
Oh, forget it.
Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham. Apparently. First I've heard.
Downhill and to home, with Stage Star in the mauve and black on the right, still leading. And as they come towards a home turn, it's still Stage Star who shows in front. Stage Star is over the last in front. Stage Star and Hurry Compton in front are going to make all the running to win the Paddy Power Gold Cup.
Really looking forward to all 3 days of the November meeting. You can see it all live here on Racing TV. One of the horses running at it is John Bon, and he is going to be the clubhouse leader in the next division that we're talking about, the 2 mile chases. We're going to, again, talk about the horses that established themselves at the top of the tree last season and the ones that might be pushing through and challenging them because they were novices last season. But we're going to start with some action that we've already seen this season, Ruby, and this is the Barberstown Castle Chase at Naas, won by Quilixios.
Yeah, look, it was the return of Marine Nationale as much as it was about Quilixios. But look, Quilixios booked out here, made a really good gallop. Marine Nationale didn't jump the first straight, ran into the bottom of it. You obviously have Hercule de Soy inside him, Lucid Dreams and Miss Gurkha, but I was really taken with the enthusiasm and, I'm not going to say the attitude is the wrong word, but just how Quilixios went about it. He was always seemed to be going forward. Hercule de Soy behind him, and especially when the camera changed up by the winning post when I was doing it with Gary on Sunday, you just looked at Quilixios and he just looked so happy. He did, like his ears pricked, he loved where he was going. Hercule de Soy looked keen and enthusiastic right behind him. Whereas your eye was drawn into Marine Nationale, you're thinking, is he going as well as they are? Ponderous at the third fence, but again, it's what's a novice. He's only had 2 runs compared to all these horses that have had way more experience. Hercule de Soy tried to gallop through the 4th fence. Mark Walsh did pretty well there, but I think the next ditch we was good, but this is the 5th last, and out of Darragh O'Keefe's hands, Quilixios, out through the air. He really did look like that was the story of the race, and he looked like the horse that was transformed. A lot was made of Marine Nationale, but to me, you then overlooked the actual performance of the winner, who was given Marine Nationale £4. He was on his comeback run. This time last year, he won at Limerick, and they stepped up to 3 miles, which clearly didn't suit. He came back and won at 2 in Naas, got left at the start in the Arkle, and in a hard race, because he got involved in the Arkle after being left at the start, and then blew out at Aintree. But I thought this was a really good performance, and wherever he goes, be it he goes to the Hilly Way or the Tingle Creek or to Leopardstown or Christmas, I think he's going to be a player in 2 mile chases.
You mentioned the fact that he won at Naas last season. It was another small field affair. Do you think he needs to dominate? Because as you say, I think Rachel Blackmore was not expecting the starter to let the Arkle go, and the starter did. Quilixios was in the wrong position. I assume she meant to be more prominent. It's kind of a throw-out, but does he need to dominate?
I don't know, does he need to dominate? I'd say 2 miles definitely suits him, and he was in that tricky year last year, wasn't he, as well? 4 into 5 or 5 into 6. It can be 4 into 5 can be hard. You're older, you're stronger. he just could be one that develops into a player in what's a division that might need a few players.
And where is Barry Connell with Marine Nationale?
I still don't think you can say, oh, that's the end of him. I wouldn't be at all that reactive. I just think he was in against more experienced horses, only his third start over fences. He didn't ping the first. I would definitely be waiting to see Marine Nationale again before I judge him.
I agree, and at least that was the kind of ground that Barry thinks suits him better as well, though. But his novice chasing form is a long way behind his novice form
it
when the
is.
Supreme.
Ultimately, maybe Barry will go back hurdling with him. That'll be Barry's
That's
decision.
what I'm hinting at.
Yeah, maybe he will, but I just see him chancing fences once more.
I think it's worth trying, but I'm just saying that in my mind, I've got an open mind about whether that's where we see Marine Nationale by the end of the season.
Yeah, possibly, but you're going back into a division to take on Constitution Hill, Statement, maybe
Agreed.
Lassymouth.
Agreed.
I don't think it's an easy option either, is it?
No, there are no easy options. Neither should there be for graded races. We've also had some action on this side of the Irish Sea with the Halden Gold Cup, and JPR won, narrowly beating Giello, but JPR won was good here.
He was, and he had plenty of weight, top weight. He's off a pretty decent mark, but it was how he travelled. Sam Broom made the running, but you just loved how he travelled for Brendan Powell. He went a really good gallop, as they always do in the Halden Gold Cup. But like Protectorat in the Ryanair, when you watch the Halden Gold Cup, JPR 1 was always the one that was slowing down. Rise up beside Sam Brew when they got into the straight, going to the third last. Absolutely canter him, got to the second last beside him, lands in front, and Brendan sits up on him. And you'd love it how he does it away from the last, how he extends against the hill and in Exeter and goes and wins. And you're kind of thinking, has he fired his hat into the ring for Tingle Creek? I think he has. You're going to see John Bon here tomorrow afternoon, but you're looking for the novices that are going to take him on. Master Chewy ran well enough under a huge weight at Ascot. Yes. You've got JPR 1, maybe Calixios comes. Are they the future? Are they the horses that are likely to take on John Bon at Tingle Creek? Possibly.
Don't you think the future are the ones that were well ahead of them in the Arkle?
Oh, they probably are, but they won't be in the Tingle Creek.
You're looking at the short term, and also, horses can, make a huge step forward as a result of their novice chasing career, and it's also a difficult second album, isn't it? Because the races aren't always run the same. It's a whole different level, and some horses that didn't thrive as novices actually take to it, and vice versa.
Some horses improve and some horses disimprove, and look, novice hurdling, novice chasing are the easiest 2 years of good horses' lives, and then when they step into open company and have to take on their equals, it becomes difficult.
Let's have a look at the Schlur Chase betting. This race is the key 2-mile race at Cheltenham in the meeting this weekend. It's been moved from Sunday to Friday. There are just the 4 runners, and John Bon is 4-11 ahead of his old rival Edwardson 4-1, another old rival Boot Hill 8-1, an Unexpected Party is the 20-1 outsider. We're going to have a look at probably John Bon's best performance, the final race of the season, the Celebration Chase. I think the Melling was pretty good too.
It's hard to knock it. I thought he was spectacular here in the Schlur. The one blip in the Clarence House, shimmied into the first. El Fabiolo was on the comeback mission and was chasing the Trainers' Championship for Willie Mullins, but he never got jumping. Look at John Bon in front compared to El Fabiolo behind. The difference between them jumping, and it was something we'd highlighted a little bit on the show through data last year. El Fabiolo's jumping. Is it good enough? And watch him through all 3 of these railways. He barely gets lifts off the ground behind there. Now I know you want horses to drag their hind legs, but you'd like to get them slightly higher than El Fabiolo gets them, butts in through the second one, and he just gallops through the third one. Like, fence lucky they're as soft as they are now, because he doesn't rise there.
Not at all.
At all. So, and they ultimately became his Achilles heel, and you have to say John Bon was doing plenty. It was good to see Edwardstone back to something like what he can do, because on the soft ground at Cheltenham in the Champion Chase, when the race looked like it presented itself to Edwardstone, he couldn't quite take it. It didn't happen for him, but John Bon sets the standard. El Fabiolo, would he have a quote on him? We're going a bit further.
We do. We do have a quote from Willie Mullins on El Fabiolo. I was going to get to it later in the show. I'll come back to that if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
I think our trajectory on how we were interpreting El Fabiolo and John Bon kind of went like that, didn't it? Because at the start of the season we were thinking, El Fabiolo is the more assured jumper. OK, he can throw in the odd bad one, but generally he's more assured. And John Bon, we were kind of examining little sort of niggling issues with him about putting in a safety step and all of that kind of stuff. And then they just changed places. And we were behind that curve, I think. Let's be fair.
Definitely, and I think we saw that here last year. I think the Schlur Chase last year was the first day I saw John Bon and went, he could be a bit different.
And he really thrived towards the end at the end of last season.
He did miss the festival, and maybe he was just a little bit fresher then at Aintree and back at Sandown, but he definitely went in the right direction all year.
Edwardstone and Bootill from the Celebration Chase, again taking him on here in the Schlur. Can you see any difference?
Quickish ground, maybe Edwardstone. I think the festival was too soft for him. Obviously, he was a good winner of an Arkle. He was brilliant in the game spirit. But he'd have to be at his very best. And there's none of them young, are there?
No, and I think Bootill was ridden to absolutely maximise his position there in the Celebration Chase. Right, the next day, Saturday, we also have a key race in Ireland, and this is the Fortria. We have the declarations for it. Banbridge, with Paul Townend on board. Captain Guinness with Darragh O'Keefe. Founder 50 for Jack Kennedy. Gentleman de Mee, Mark Walsh. Solness for Danny Mullins. And Senecia for Philip Enright. How do you see that?
Well, Captain Guinness won it last year, and I think he'll win it again this year. Founder 50 has a run under his belt after winning it down Royal. He won the second season Novice Chase. I think he's got to get up to Captain Guinness's level though. And the dead 2 miles at Navan, the Fortria starts be at the back of the third last fence. Most chases or 2 mile chases at Navan are 2-1, but the Fortria is bang on to 2, and I think it really suits Captain Guinness.
Banbridge took Captain Guinness down there at Punchestown. Was that related to the argument you've just made?
Possibly, but I just think he was good here in this race last year, and I think Banbridge warmed up through the season last year. I'd be with Captain Guinness.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Let's take a look at Captain Guinness winning the Queen Mother Champion Chase. We've been anticipating he might get his Grade 1 stripes at some point, but this was where he unexpectedly did.
He did. Bill Fabiola misses the first, Gentleman de Mee drops in, but look, it was a 3-horse race apparently all year. John Bon, Edwardstone and then Fabiola. 4th fence even, El Fabiola. He's gone out of the race, sits down, you're thinking 3 down to 1. This is Edwardstone's chance, but look, that was the jumping that haunted him again then at Sandown. Edwardstone, and they got to the next fence, comes out of Tom Cannon's hands and pinged it, and you're thinking, are these horses good enough to catch up with him? But it didn't take long before you realised they were. Last ditch, Elixir the Notes, Captain Guinness, Gentleman de Mee, Fun and Buddha Savola. To me, they were way too close to him at this point. You're thinking Edwardstone starting to struggle, and ultimately he took a tired fall at the second last fence, and it was left then to Captain Guinness and Gentleman de Mee. Who wants it? Who's going to take it? Hard to say either of them are really strong finishers, but to be fair to Henry de Bromhead, he had Captain Guinness in terrific form, Rachel Blackmore on board, Declan Andy owns him, and he got his huge day in the sun. I think he'll win the Fortria, but I'd be surprised if he won a second championship.
This was great to see because obviously he had a recurrence of his atrial problems,
yes,
his heart problems during
at
the course
Leopardstown,
yeah. So it was a wonderful, heartwarming success, but as you say, not the finish we were expecting, not the joys we were looking for.
No, but that's the unpredictability, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's a strong division. You have Edwardstone, John Bon, and Fabiola. Someone told you none of the 3 of them would go to the last fence with a chance.
Well, talking about strong form, should we have a look at the Arkle? Gaelic Warrior was magnificent here.
He was, and again you'll see with Founder 50, Calixios, Rachel obviously thought it was going to be a false start, and no chance from the word go for him. Matata booked out. Gaelic Warrior showed loads of enthusiasm early in the race. He let Tomp the Grey, he makes a couple of mistakes here and you wonder about him at Cheltenham, and Founder 50. Yeah, Founder 50's gone and won at the North. It'd be interesting to see what he does in the Fortria to give you a line into it. But Gaelic Warrior eventually switched off for Paul. He had no trouble going the speed they were going behind Matata in front. Hunter's Yarm was dropped in at the back in the second. Simon Munir and Isaac Swade colours. He's a slick, fast jumper, Gaelic Warrior. Doesn't get over height. That was the first mistake for Ilete Tomp. He's going to make another now here at the last ditch, down the back on the inside. But Gaelic Warrior was always cantering. Ilete Tomp, oof, wasn't pretty, was it? Founder 50 goes by Gaelic Warrior down the hill, but it didn't seem to bother Paul Townend. He let Jack Kennedy go and chase Sammy Twiston in front, and by the time he got to the second last fence, Paul was back beside him, absolutely cantering a Gaelic Warrior. Master Chewy's run a blinder, and as we said already, he ran really well at Ascot. JPR1 has won the Holland Gold Cup. Maybe it is really strong, but you'll get an idea on Saturday when Founder 50 runs in the 4-3.
Going into this, I think we all agreed that Gaelic Warrior was a huge talent. That I was slightly concerned about his tendency to go to his right, which had been an Achilles heel, certainly over hurdles at this track, the old course, and the previous 2 festivals when he finished second. But here, he was able to go up the inside and he stormed to victory. Going into this race, there had been a concern about how he was beforehand, what his behaviour would be like, because he got quite agitated prior to his trouncing by Factor File.
Yeah, he did, yeah. He behaved well enough until Paul got on him, going out down to shoot. So I wouldn't kind of mind that. That's going to be him. But definitely once he has something in front of him, he seems to go straight. Where
do you see him being campaigned? Because he's got range, this horse.
He has. I mean, could he be a King George horse? Obviously, Anna Grameen is back. He has the Hilly Way as an option. So with Gaelic Warrior, King George, It ultimately depends on what way Willie wants to go. I kind of think from reading Willie, though, he's thinking he's a 2-miler, isn't he?
I think so. I think that seems to be where he's certainly starting off. What do you make of Gaelic Warrior's defeat by Il Était Temps at Punchestown?
I don't know. Paul never thought that he was going as well as he was at Cheltenham, but we'd prefer if he didn't beat him all the time.
Yeah. Again, I was expecting a more sort of positive ride, more like the Arkle.
Yeah, maybe. But I'd say he just wasn't giving him the vibe. He was never too keen, whereas he was quite keen all the way in that Arkle. And I wondered watching him last year, I was surprised we did Tom coming back to win at 2 miles at Punchestown, because I thought going 2.5 at entry brought about a lot of improvement in him. And I wonder, could he be King George horse?
An intermediate kind of, 2.5 mile up to
he'd
easy
probably run
3.
the John Durkin. Does he go King George then?
Willie's running everything in the John Durkin again, isn't he? He's already signed up 5.
The whole lot,
yeah. Of which he let
It's up the second horse box and all.
And you mentioned the strength of the form, JPR1, Quilixios, Mr. Chewy as well. It's up to Founder 50 as well. They've all come out and either won or run really well this season already.
Yeah, it's pretty strong, or it looks strong anyway.
So you mentioned a couple of things that Willie Mullins had to say, and it's worth bringing those up. We're going to start with his thoughts on El Fabiolo. Again, I'm quoting from the Sporting Life Stable Tour. He's toying with sending El Fabiolo up in trip, so he clearly feels that those mistakes were probably coming about him having to go a pace quicker than perhaps he was comfortable doing. So that's one point. And the second point is he has had an early setback, so might not come back until Christmas. But other than that, he's in good shape. That, to me, reads like it was a more significant setback than Galopin de Champs. Would that be fair, do you think? Am I reading the runes right?
Yeah, he's giving Galopin de Champs a chance of making a race next weekend.
Yeah.
And he's not letting Fabiola run till Christmas.
Okay, so it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes. I
No,
was quite
it
pleased with
doesn't.
this at the time.
We'll give you a 10 out of 10 for that one. But, it is, obviously he won't run until Christmas, but it would be interesting. I don't know. Would he settle well enough? I only rode him once. I'd say he'd be a hard enough rider in a 3 mile race. Yeah. Maybe 2.5, but I wouldn't like to go much further with him.
It's like him and Gaelic Warrior. Sort of like if you had that to ride both of them in one day, you'll be kind of exhausted by the end of the day.
Wouldn't go to work.
Have to lead against them. You also mentioned in passing Energumen, who of course won 2 successive editions of the Queen Mother Champion Chase in 2022 and 2023. The vibes seem to be positive, that he'll be back for the Hilly Way. You just mentioned it in passing, Ruby, as if it was a given. Let's have a look at what Willie Mullins said in his stable tour. It'd be great to see this dual champion back. He's been hitting all his targets and came in with all the rest of the horses, and we haven't had one setback with him. I'd say that reads pretty positive.
I'd say you're getting better at this detective work.
But it's not. There's no tentativeness about it at all. You can feel confident.
He seems to be, or looks to be, in great form. In-man rides him the whole time. But yeah, I'd imagine he'll go back to the Hilly Way. What did he do last year? Just run the Hilly Way, was it? Didn't even.
Yeah, I can't remember, to be perfectly honest.
No penalty either.
Yeah, the question always with horses coming back after a long break and injury-related break is how much ability do they retain? Has that shaved things off, as well as the natural deterioration of a year older?
Of age, yeah, age as well.
As we all know,
big time. It'll be a question mark, but I'm afraid until he turns up in Cork, none of us are going to know that.
So you mentioned in passing, you thought this division was in need of some depth.
I just think when you look at the stay and chase division, you have Fast or Slow, you have Galopin de Champs, you have Jerry Calam and whatever few more you want to throw in, as well as JP's army coming on behind them. When you look at the 2 mile division, then Fabiola might step up. Energumen has to come back from an injury. We know Edward Stone isn't quite there, so it's John Bond. So yeah, I do think you need some novices into the 2 mile division.
Yeah, and Gaelic Warrior is the one that you're most looking towards for it.
He's probably the one, yeah. Gaelic Warrior, I think Quilixios didn't do anything wrong. JPR1 will go to the Tingle Creek. There's going to be a few horses try and put their hand up, but I do think it is the one division. Whereas if you look at the Champion Hurdle division, which we will do next week or the week after, I think Lossiemouth possibly going in there and maybe Brighter Days Ahead all of a sudden makes that look a bit stronger. I do think the one that could be lacking horses maybe is the Champion Chase division.
Okay. So, but it's all setting up rather nicely for what should be an excellent season.
I get the feeling you don't really agree with me here. You're thinking
I think that John Bon ended up being pretty dominant in this division. The horse that I'm looking at is Gaelic Warrior, because I thought it was impossible not to be so incredibly impressed with an Arkle, which looked strong at the time. It was strongly run. He absolutely dominated it. And horses have come out of that and just franked the form left, right and centre. So to me, he is that's the most exciting horse coming out of this division, going in and against John Bon. Everything else, John Bon, I think, has got beaten every which way. And Energumen, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. It'll be interesting.
It will be interesting. It will be interesting. So that is our thoughts on the season ahead, what we're hoping to see over the weekend. We've got some reflections on what we have seen previously here during the season.
And look, there's plenty of good beginners chases in Navan this weekend. A couple of maiden hurdles. Could have Dice Sardinas here on Sunday. Genie's Destiny, does he throw his hat into the ring for the intermediate, or even to be a King George horse? I think it's now until Christmas. That's what we're looking at. And yeah, I think just a little bit more rain. The world will be right.
We would like a little bit more rain, certainly. Right, well, I hope you've enjoyed the first edition of Road to Cheltenham. I hope you remain with us for the next 4 months. Maybe manage to win a mug. Ruby, thank you for your
best of luck with that one.
Yeah, you've got to pass his bar. Good luck with that.
Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.